Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
Welcome, everybody. Today we are talking about foods that can work like medicine. And we're mostly talking about probiotic foods and a few other foods that can really change your body from the inside out. I love to talk about some of the stories that people share with me. And I get a lot of stories from people who email me. And I have this place on my website at culturedfoodlife.com where I place the stories that people send me of the healings they've had, of the things they've overcome. And it's so moving. And I love it because they share their story and they also will usually send me a picture and you can see and relate to these people and feel inspired. They're very moving, and I'm so grateful to be a part of people's lives. And as they send me these stories, I'm so grateful that we can share them with each other because we are all brothers and sisters in this life. And when one of us gets better, we encourage others to get better. And that has happened to me. And even as well as I feel now, when people send me these stories, it's encouraging to me to keep doing what I'm doing, to keep sharing the good news that our bodies can heal, that we have 100 trillion microbes assisting us each and every day. And when you share your story, it's such a blessing and inspiration to others. And it can make such a difference in someone's life who's seeking for answers. So if you get the chance, head on over to my Lives Touched page at culturedfoodlife.com. You'll see in the top bar up there, it says Lives Touch. Click on that if you're needing some inspiration or if you're wanting to understand more about what these foods do. There's some really wonderful stories on there, even for animals too. I love the stories they send me on the dogs and animals that have healed because they're part of our world too. And it's such a wonderful thing to know that these types of foods help them too. Now, her story is wonderful, and it's about her son, and her name is Rebecca Willis. And when I first read this story, one of my people on my staff had sent it over to me, and I was in the car, and I was reading it in the car, and I had to pull over and stop driving because it was so moving because I had to finish the story, and it was very touching, and I hope that it will help you inspire you if you're in similar circumstances, and even if you're not, to encourage you to maybe embrace some of these probiotic foods and really change your life. I want to read it to you in her words. It's very moving, and I hope it is a blessing to you. This is from Rebecca. Hi there, Donna. I bought milk kefir grains from you back in early 2014. After I watched your moving testimony, my son Hudson was 4 years old at the time and had recently received a PDD-NOS diagnosis, which is non-specific autism spectrum diagnosis. And I was desperately researching possible causes of this frustrating syndrome. He was always a sweet child, but had chronic constipation, behavioral problems, and severe learning disabilities. When I started him on milk kefir, he was only able to label people and things when I pointed to them. And that was really the extent of his communication abilities. The first night after giving both of us kefir in the form of chocolate protein shakes, I put him in bed and out of fear of the dreaded Herkimer reaction. If you guys don't know what this is, let me pause the story here for a second. A Herkimer reaction is when you have a die-off of certain pathogens in your body that are bad bacteria. And when they die off, they leave off toxins. Because she had ingested a lot of good bacteria, sometimes you'll get a die-off, and which can give you flu-like symptoms. It usually is very short-lived, and it's actually a good thing, but it can be a little uncomfortable. So that's what she's talking about when she said she was afraid of the Herkimer reaction. Okay, let's back to her story. I had some mild reactions myself, but what was very scary for me was waking up to Hudson wheezing and sounding like he couldn't get any air into his lungs. I jumped up, put on shoes, and buckled him into the car seat and took him off for the ER at the Children's Hospital. Midway there, I heard a little voice singing in the back seat. So I pulled over, peered at him, and he was just smiling back at me and singing. That was the only day that he had a scary reaction from the die-off, but it still sticks out of my memory because it showed me the battle that was happening in his body with the introduction of an army of good bacteria. 2 weeks after that day, Hudson began speaking full sentences. In 2 weeks. I could not even believe what I was hearing. After that, I became a kefir prophet myself, and my whole family started making and drinking kefir. Now Hudson is almost 9 years old, and he is thriving. He's telling gross jokes and acting like a neurotypical immature boy, and I just couldn't be happier. In terms of his learning, he has become an avid reader. He never wants us to tell him how to pronounce a difficult word. He tried for at least 5 minutes the other night to pronounce unconscious, and finally allowed us to tell him. After he repeated it incredulously and laughed hysterically. He is a math machine. He prides himself on already knowing many of his times table. And physically speaking, we have gone from weekly enemas to address his once chronic constipation to never ever needing them. We still need to get him tested for food sensitivities again, but I have let him try some foods that he previously was sensitive to, and he doesn't have any of those problems as he did before. In terms of my own kefir journey, I have not been as consistent with it, but I always noticed marked improvement in my bowel habits, overall health, and my outlook on life when I'm having kefir at least every other day. I recently got a hypothyroidism diagnosis, so I am taking the consistency with the kefir routine much more serious now. Something else that I have tried without the advice of a doctor just because I thought it was worth a shot are kefir whey implant enemas. My thoughts stem from the idea of fecal transplant and the idea that if someone's probiotic bacteria has been ravaged by antibiotics, it will affect the entire digestive system, not just the upper part. I don't trust anyone enough to use their own poo for that, nor would I trust the medical community to select someone for me, so I thought of kefir. I decided that keef milk solids would probably inflame the lower digestive system, but maybe whey would be okay. I'm sure many people have decided that I'm cuckoo at this point of my story and have probably stopped listening. But I did start on this myself first and tried one enema per week for about 2 months. After just 2 rounds, I noticed increases in energy, started feeling hungry in the morning for the first time ever, and started losing weight without even trying. I also noticed that my wedding ring got looser and my stomach stuck out less, which indicated that I was retaining less water and was therefore less bloated. The effects have been so astounding on my bowels and has even had a positive effect on my mood. My husband was so amazed by my experience that he tried it, and it has cured his decades-long chronic indigestion and has allowed him to start eating certain foods he could not have eaten before without stomach pain and never-ending gas. There are still some foods he cannot tolerate, but the changes have been noticeable. My hope is, since these are living probiotic bacteria, one day we won't have to do the enemas anymore. For now, we are happy to do them once a week, and I'm almost become a competition to see whose body can produce the most happy growling and gurgling microbes. I hope you rest easy every night knowing that you have changed innumerable lives. Many of us who will never speak are able to thank you directly face to face. Thank you for sharing your story with the world and choosing such a worthwhile vocation to share your knowledge and experience in life-saving probiotic cultures. Together we can heal our sick, tired, and sad society, one kefir grain at a time. Thank you, Rebecca, for that lovely story. It encourages me as much as it does someone who is sick, because it is, wonderful to find these stories and to know that little Hudson is living a life that perhaps he never would had he not found them. And I also had a good friend, Mary, and she was in the very beginning when I first found cultured food. She was one of my greatest inspirations, because she too had 2 autistic children and started giving them these cultured foods. And what happened was so astounding to me that it sent me on a journey to find out more about these foods that changed her little boys who were severely autistic from the inside out. She was a blessing to me. She was an encouragement to me, because in those days, it was 14 years ago, nobody was talking about microbes but me and probably Mary. And we would sit their kids were in class together. They had drama classes, and we would sit and talk, and people would laugh at us and say, oh my gosh, they've got like some kind of food cult going on. But it had changed our lives so dramatically, and it had made such a difference in our children's lives and in our own lives, that we just couldn't stop. We couldn't stop learning. We couldn't stop talking about it. And I'm so thankful for people like Mary and Rebecca, who as mothers did everything they could to help their children. And I was one of those people too. I didn't try to heal myself. I tried to heal my daughter. And what happened was it turned around and healed me. So that's just one of the many stories that I hear all the time. So I really encourage you, if you're discouraged or needing some inspiration, head on over to culturedfoodlife.com and check out my Lives Touch page. And I hope it'll help you as much as it has helped so many. So probiotics are a very exciting frontier in health and wellness right now. They haven't always been, but they are now. There's tons of research coming out in support of all these 100 trillion microbes that live inside of us too. Mostly people only think about probiotic supplements in a bottle. But on my show, we talk about foods that have probiotics in them. We teach you how to grow your own probiotics in a jar in these foods and all the differences they can make. And as you think about your life, your health, and your future, do you worry about that? I mean, I always did. I don't know if you do, but I did. Many years ago when I got diseases and that left me with despair and sickness, and I felt like my body had betrayed me, I went on a mission for wellness. And that's when I found these foods that changed everything for me. And life is so fleeting, and you need your body to help you live a long and happy life. It's the only home you have. And so this is what this show is about. There is so much help for you all the time, and it's often right in front of you, and it's inside of you, and you don't even know it's there. So 15 years ago, when I thought it was the end for me, and what had I done to my body and to my brand new little tiny premature baby? How did I wind up so sick, and how did it make her so sick? But I was not alone. All my cries for help were heard, and it came to me in the form of food that was infused with trillions of little helpers, little microbes that were invisible, and they were living in me and all around me, and I never so much as gave them a second thought until I got pretty sick. Trillions of me had made me their host, but more than that, they became my greatest teacher and my very best healer. You have trillions of microbes too, living organisms that were placed inside of you create a spectacular life. You're more microbes than cells in the body. And something loved you so much that it made you that way. And not only are you mostly microbes, 10 times more microbes than you are cells in your body. And it's the most dominant organism on this planet. We're created that way. And so we really need to pay attention to that because it's there for a reason. Did you know that cultured foods with their special little microbes, they can work like medicine in the body? And it's so interesting how it all works. And most of us take it for granted because we really don't talk about it or hear about it. All we ever hear about is killing bacteria or using antibacterial soaps or antibiotic because we think it's all bad. And 99% of the bacteria in your body is either harmless or good bacteria. And it's there keeping you well each and every day. And you don't even know it. The most effective foods I've found for boosting your immune system is cultured foods, or what we call probiotic cultured foods. Nothing. And guys, I've tried so many diets. Through the years before I found cultured foods, I was on every bandwagon you could think of. But it wasn't until I found these cultured foods that everything changed for me. Okay, so let me explain to you how your immune system works to fight a virus or a pathogen. Viruses can't die for the simple reason that they aren't alive in the first place. Viruses can't thrive independently. They must invade a host organism and try to change the way the cells work in that host. So how does your body defend us against a virus? Okay, so when one enters into your body, it starts to invade you and take over your cells, redirecting them to produce more of the virus that they brought with them. However, we are equipped with white blood cells that destroy germs as soon as they're detected. However, if a viral infection begins to take hold, we've got to fight back using a more powerful defense of cells, and they're called T and B cells. They're antibodies. They're special proteins made by B cells that bind to a virus, and they stop it from replicating. And they also tag that virus so the other blood cells know to destroy it. Now, T cells have different roles to play. Some act as a guard dog that raises the alarm when they detect an invading virus. Here's where your good bacteria comes in. Certain bacteria in your gut influences the development of your basic immune system by doing such things like correcting deficiencies and increasing the number of T cells. And there are two kinds of T cells. There's killer T cells and helper T cells. The killer T cells find and destroy that infected cell that has been turned into a virus-making factory. It goes out and seeks it out, tries to find it. But the helper T cells, they don't go after and try to kill it or fight the invaders themselves. Instead, they kind of they act like a little team coordinator. And when a helper T cell sends out a chemical message, what happens is that killer T cell, the other one, is matched. They find a match to it. So they have a helper cell that finds it, and then that attracts a killer T cell. And it's alerted that there's a virus present, so it seeks it out to destroy it. And having a lot of good bacteria in your gut will increase all the T cell production and keep communication among all the cells functioning at a really high level. These special signals derived from microbes are essential for optimal immune responses to viral infections. So here's the deal. T cells. You want lots of them to fight viruses and pathogens, right? You want T cells that kill viruses, and you want T cells that alert you that they're there and they need to be destroyed. They need to destroy a virus, and we need more T cells, right? Lots and lots of good bacteria will help you to do that. So how do you get that? So how do you get lots of good bacteria? Inside of your gut, you're covered in inside and out 100 trillion microbes. Now, depending on how many antibiotics you've had, what your diet is like, how you feed your microbes will determine how much good bacteria you have that fights these pathogens. And so most people, if they've lived a typical American lifestyle, they've had rounds of antibiotics, they've eaten lots of processed food and things like that. And so they're going to have greatly diminished amounts of good bacteria in their gut, which is why they get sick a lot too, because they don't have enough good bacteria that allows the T cells to do their jobs. So what do? Lots of cultured foods and also prebiotic foods, and which is food for your bacteria. Things like fruits and vegetables. There's all these special foods that feed the bacteria and make it grow and make it strong. And here's the deal. This is how bacteria works. It works in numbers. So if it has enough of a certain strain of bacteria, it will go fight for you. And if it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really do its job because it only likes to have a big army of it, and it has to have enough of it. And once it does, then it signals and does its job. Cultured foods work so effectively in the body because they're full of probiotics, and they just march through your system, and they will get rid of the pathogens. It's like a little village down there living in your gut. Well, it's more like a city that's is building all these different communities of microbes, and they're just trying to decide who's going to win and who's not going to survive. And you know that in your gut, you have more microbes than in the Milky Way galaxy. You're more microbes throughout your body than the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. It's just an entire universe down there. And we don't understand a lot about it. And it's really fun to start to understand. It's really interesting. For instance, when you have an imbalance, let's say you have something like Candida, which is a yeast. A lot of the reasons that you have an overgrowth of Candida is because you've probably had an antibiotic, which kills off all the good and bad bacteria in your gut. And Candida yeast will take over in that space. There's a big empty space in your gut. So Candida yeast takes over that space and starts to grow and multiply, and it outgrows where it's supposed to be, which can cause all kinds of problems. But if you have a lot of good bacteria in your gut, then that candida yeast stays over where it's supposed to in the corner, and keeps everything in balance. And candida is actually, there's some beneficial things to it. It helps us to digest heavy metals and things that our regular digestive system cannot handle. So it's important to have little tiny bits of it, but when it outgrows its boundaries, it can get all kinds of problems. So having lots of microbes in your gut that are crowding out that candida is one of the wonderful ways that can keep your body in balance. It's really funny because people really don't understand. I mean, you could almost do a mini series on how this whole thing works. For instance, I have seen these white blood cells at work, and they look like arms that reach out and grab these pathogens that are in our body and engulf them and destroy them. And it's such a crazy cool thing to see. If you ever want to Google it, Google how, these white blood cells engulf and destroy pathogens. It's just amazing. It looks like a movie. And I love that our bodies are doing this all the time inside of us, and we're not even aware of it. But once you get a handle on understanding how your body's working, it's fun to work with your body and help it to enhance your immune system and give it more strength by the foods that you eat. Okay, so let me explain another thing that's really, really interesting. On a daily basis, our bodies use antioxidant vitamins to boost your immune system. One of the most important antioxidants for this is vitamin C, sometimes known as ascorbic acid. Studies have shown that vitamin C helps boost our immune system and strengthen the adrenal glands, but it also reduces cardiovascular disease, coronary heart disease, strokes, and it can improve your prenatal health problems, eye diseases, and even things like skin wrinkling it works on. But it's so essential to our daily lives, and we don't have the ability to make this special vitamin in our bodies. So we got to get vitamin C from our diet. And it's water soluble, so it doesn't last very long in the body. And one of the best ways to do this is through cultured foods, and especially one of my favorites, cultured vegetables. Things like pickles and sauerkraut, but they have to be cultured and not canned. The canned ones don't contain the probiotics. Only the ones that are on the health food sections and the refrigerator sections have the probiotics in them. And they're loaded with vitamin C. One jar, for instance, half a cup or a cup of regular cabbage that's raw has about 70 milligrams of vitamin C. If you ferment that cup of raw cabbage, it goes to 700 milligrams of vitamin C just through the magic of fermentation. It's an incredible thing. And you can feel the difference when you eat it. And it's really cool because lacto acid fermentation increases the micronutrients profile of so many foods. And not only does vitamin C increase when you ferment foods, but other vitamins too, such as A and B, are also increased. Not to the extent that vitamin C is, but not only that, you will absorb them better because these foods are basically pre-digested foods. So you'll absorb them easier. Your body just can speed them on the way to the parts of the body that are needed because they're so easily digested, because they're loaded with enzymes and they've been broken down by the microbes, and it works incredibly well. All of the essential nutrients in our that we need boost our body's ability to fight infections and invaders and keep our immune system running strong at optimum levels. But here's the thing. This is something that's really interesting, and I have seen this time and time again in my own life, and I never understood what was happening. But sugar can lower your immune system by 75%. And let's talk about this because it's really, really interesting. There was a researcher, Dr. Linus Pauling, in the 1970s. He was one of the greatest researchers in the field of microbiology. And he discovered that vitamin C helps the body combat the common cold. But what he also found was how sugar can do the opposite. So let's say, you're going to have a sugary treat. Maybe you decide to have a piece of cake or some cookies or glasses of soda. Any of these would be enough to raise your blood sugar. And as your blood sugar would start to rise and get to over 120 units or above, the white blood cells start to lose their ability to absorb and fight infections. And the reason they do that is vitamin C is used by white blood cells to engulf and absorb viruses and harmful bacteria. And white blood cells need to contain 50 times the concentration of vitamin C as would be normally found in the blood around it. That's a lot. But here's the crazy part. Sugar, or glucose, has a very similar chemical structure to vitamin C. So when you eat sugar, your cells hungrily take in the sugar thinking that it's vitamin C. So the 50% concentration of vitamin C in your cells starts to drop immediately, and your immune system's ability to fight a virus is reduced by 75%. And it can take 4 to 6 hours for that vitamin C concentration in the white blood cells to go back to normal. So it's not a great idea, especially if you're sick, to eat any kind of sugar, or if you don't want to get sick, because the white blood cells cannot get past the sugar to do their job. Sugar is not just sugar, guys. It literally affects your immune system and can really drop your immune system by 75% because it's got the same structure as vitamin C, and your body gets confused and it loses its ability to fight for you on your behalf. So if you eat a lot of probiotic foods, which are super easy to make, things like kefir, which is a fermented, you can either do it with non-dairy milk or dairy. You can make almond milk kefir or coconut kefir or goat's kefir or cow's milk kefir, and it has 50 plus good bacteria in it. And that's a powerful way to keep your immune system really strong, because even kefir has vitamin C in it, and quite a bit actually. And also there's kombucha, which is a wonderful fermented tea, which it's a wonderful thing because it helps assist the liver in detoxifying you, but it also has a special bacteria that cannot be killed by antibiotics because it's a probiotic yeast, and it's powerful. It's a very powerful bacteria. And also cultured vegetables have a special bacterium that I just absolutely love, Lactobacillus plantarum, that fights on your behalf, that helps your body to fight, especially, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, any kind of stomach distress or diarrhea or vomiting. It's powerful food for your body. And it's one of my favorite things that cultured foods can do. It's another really cool thing that a lot of people don't know about is that if you've had cancer and you had to have chemotherapy, those good bacteria, if you start ingesting these good bacteria, they can go to work, fix your gut lining after chemotherapy, which can be devastated by chemotherapy. And it will help you survive the chemo and go on about your life and live a good life. And if you don't have enough of these helpers, the chemo can be very devastating. It can be extremely hard to heal from the chemo without the help of these good microbes to restore the gut lining. So they not only boost your immune system, they make you vitamins, they help you digest your food, they help you feel emotionally better when you're struggling, but only if you don't destroy them with lots of antibiotics and antibacterial soaps, and if you feed them properly with lots of prebiotic foods. And we're going to do a show about that because I love talking about prebiotic foods, which are things like fruits and vegetables, but there's a lot of prebiotic foods out there that really can help you and assist your immune system and allow your good bacteria to really grow and thrive and make your life so much easier. And they're not just a good idea. They're at the forefront of health and wellness. And it's interesting. One of my favorite things that these probiotic foods do, and especially in cultured vegetables, is when I first started eating them, we had gotten some food poisoning and I got really sick. And I had taken a spoonful of the juice of some cultured vegetables. And I couldn't believe that within a half hour, I was up feeling like myself again when I had just felt like I was on death's door. And so was my family. And it was really the reason I started eating cultured vegetables, because they just blew my mind that they could work so fast. And then I started seeing that whenever my kids had anything wrong, or my friends' kids did. And time and time again, people would say, oh, my kids had diarrhea, or they were throwing up and they got this kind of virus. And I would tell them to take a spoonful of the cultured vegetable juice, because most of the time when you're sick, you don't want to eat the vegetables, but the juice is just as powerful as the vegetables. And I mean, over and over and over again, until I was just flooded with people telling me that it works so effectively that that's the reason they always kept cultured vegetables in their refrigerator, because there's nothing on the market that could really stop these kinds of symptoms, whether it's throwing up or food poisoning or diarrhea, as effectively as even just a small spoonful of cultured vegetables. And Lactobacillus plantarum is in cultured vegetables, and it is really, really powerful bacteria. And you don't have to believe me, just try it. The next time you get sick or someone in your family has something, make sure that you have a jar of these in your fridge. And the cool thing about it is these vegetables can last like 9 months in your fridge because they're perfectly preserved. They stay. That's the beauty of fermentation, is it preserves the food and keeps it safe because it's so filled with good bacteria that it keeps out the pathogens and preserves it. And when you eat it, it preserves you too. It keeps you healthy and looking better than you would if you didn't have them. But the next time you have some kind of thing, just try a spoonful of the juice and see if it doesn't make a believer out of you. I just got an email not too long ago from a woman who said, I'm a believer, because she was on the way to the doctor's office with her son and got to turn around because she didn't have to take him. He had really couldn't stop throwing up and diarrhea. And it was a powerful story that I have heard so many times. I've had a videographer, and his little boy got really sick. He had just done a video shoot for me, and he'd gone home, and his little boy was really, really sick and throwing up. I think he was 4 years old. And I had given him a jar of cultured vegetables to take home to him and his wife. And here, his little boy was kind of sickly and had a lot of health problems. And his wife gave him some of these vegetables. I think it was the juice. And I think she gave him a spoonful of kefir too. And 4 hours later, he was up playing with Hot Wheels when he had been laying on his back, throwing up on himself because he was too sick to get up. And that made my videographer a believer. And they started making and eating these foods, and their little boy got better. And it's a wonderful thing to see that I don't have to convince anybody. These foods speak for themselves. I'm just the messenger here. And there's so much information out there about what works, but there are a few things that work very well for anybody who's got vomiting or diarrhea, as powerful as these. I don't even think there's things on the market that help when you've got that. You just kind of have to live through it. But I promise you that if you try it, it will teach you a life lesson. And you won't have to believe me anymore because you'll know for yourself. You'll know for yourself that it works. And that's really how my message got started. I just would tell people and it would work for them, and then they would believe. And it was a wonderful thing to see so many people get well and to learn it firsthand on their own without me or somebody else having to convince them. Their own body taught them those lessons. So all of these foods have special properties. The vegetables are powerful. Kefir is just, guys, it's so important that you start taking this before cold and flu season hits. I promise you it could make such a difference in your life. It has a powerful way of reestablishing your microbiome in a powerful way that allows you to sail through these cold and flu seasons, allows allergies to be lessened, food allergies to go away. There's so many wonderful things that these foods can do, which is why I've written 3 books about it. And I know it sounds it's new to you, but I promise you it's not hard. It is just new. And if you want to get started, I have everything you need. I've been working, 7 years now, I've been doing this since, 15 years. But I didn't really start a website or anything like that until 7 years ago. And I've created everything I could think of to help you. I have everything on my website, culturedfoodlife.com, and it's all free for you to get started. I have an ebook that's a getting started guide. It teaches you how to make kefir, kombucha, cultured vegetables, and it's all free. I have free videos on there. I have books that they have gazillions of recipes in them. And I have lots of recipes on my website too. I think I have 350 or something. I have a Probiotic Pro membership site where there's a forum and a live chat and a community of people where we have lots of extra special videos. We have extra stuff there. I just want you to get started. You don't have to do all of it. Just pick one food, whether it's kefir, kombucha, and cultured vegetables, and pick the one that most interests you and start with that. That's what I did. And I just started with one, and it made such a difference. And I felt better. I wanted to do the other ones because I saw such a difference and I had more energy to do the other things. I promise you this is not hard. It's just something new that you're learning, and it's fun. It's delicious. And I've got all kinds of help for you. We have a wonderful community of people, and I have a lot of people that help me on staff they're wonderful, and we try to help everybody. And so all of these foods are very easy to make. They're sustainable. When you get a culture, most of the time, all the cultures will last through your children's children if you take care of them. They'll last forever. So you don't have to keep buying them all the time. I've had my kefir grains for 15 years and my kombucha for 15 years and my sourdough starter for 15 years. I've had all these cultures in my life, and they just multiply and grow, and I can, help other people with them. And it's made all the difference in the world. I never thought that the answer to my prayers would come in the form of invisible microbes that sat in jars on my counter and transformed my food and made me whole. It is a wonderful thing to behold, to watch your own body work on your behalf to make you well. Please don't spend your life not feeling good. You just don't know what you're missing. When you feel good, everything gets better. Every area of your life gets better. It could change your life. I am here to help you. I hope I can inspire you. And I hope I can be a source of encouragement. And if you're not ready, that's okay too. Someday you will be ready, or someday you'll find your way to wellness. I'm just one avenue. And I appreciate you listening to me. I just want you to know that if you need help, I'm here for you. You guys have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Tuesday.